Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good to see everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We're just a couple minutes late, but we were just dealing with some technical issues. So let me just say favor to everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and wherever you are, I hope that you are doing well. And as we like to say here, nothing missing, nothing broken be in your lives. So thank you, the moderators that are all in here before I introduce our guest of who we know who he is. But just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. The house is filling up. Ryder, Nina, how are you doing? Lost in space. I'll tell you, a lot of people are awfully happy. You gave a lot of people hope in the midst, I think, of a disaster, and it shows you how you can come out of a disaster untouched. So way to go. David Barry, I saw that you said you were sad earlier. I hope it's nothing that we can't help overcome. Gaia, good to see you. Let's see who else is there. David Castle, greetings. And let's see. Wendy, good to see you. Heidi and Martin, I saw you earlier. Love the video. So Miriam, good to see everyone. John Price. So lots of people filing in, and I'm happy to bring back well, y'all, many of you know him. You see that. Hey, Robert V, how you doing? Ryder Leave, Raised by Giants. Ryder, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, Wayne. Thanks so much for having me on your show again. It's a honor and a privilege, seriously. Favor and BOSTO to everyone in the chat today as well. Love you guys, and nothing missing, nothing broken.
I love that. I mean, I wake up saying that. The first conscious word I wake up is I simply say, nothing missing, nothing broken in my life or my wife's life. And the answer is always right there, and I clues that. So that's how I greet the day. And then I always say that we are surrounded by favor. And then I add a little bit more to this. I use the prosperity magic and saying, how did I become wealthy? And why did I become wealthy? So there you go. So I've been watching your videos. You have some great guests over there, Ryder. I really enjoy it. And you wrote me, I guess, about almost a month ago and said that you had gotten kind of like the second part of the first presentation you did when you came on. And you said that was interesting because what I was talking about on Monday about AI has a lot to relate to of what you're going to be showing us.
Yes, 100%. And I'm really excited to share this presentation with you and the tribe. And really quick, for people that don't know, this was the first show that I was ever on. And Wayne brought me on not knowing who I was, what I was doing, or even what we were going to talk about or anything. And he made me feel super comfortable. And for that, I'm truly grateful. And you didn't have to do that, Wayne, but I'm super glad that you did.
Well, I got to tell you, the thing that you remind me of is our great friend Brian, and so I see that in the same spirit. So there you go.
I mean, you've given me a platform, or so many other people, a platform and a place to grow and share our thoughts and ideas, and that's the most beautiful thing, Wayne, because not everyone has to agree or believe what I share about or what any of us share about, right? It's about expansion of thoughts and ideas and bringing things to the table that I don't think many people have thought about that. And if they have, they never shared about. And that's what I really love about your show, Wayne, is you're not afraid to challenge people, right? And make them think. And you do it so eloquently. I love it. I can't say anything more about you. You're a true philosopher, and it brings me much joy knowing that there are people out there like you that aren't afraid to ask questions and think outside of the box and not just talk about it, but actually embody it. Right.
Thank you.
Because I think that that's a huge key in all this, because a lot of people are just talking to hear themselves talk with no action behind it. So
yeah, if you can't,
today, Wayne, thank you.
I will, grew up with the monarchy that goes that, there's a lot of people who can talk the walk. There's very few of them who can actually walk the talk. So
And a lot of fakeness, just people, just fakeness, just straight fakeness. And you can see it. And there's still people that, unfortunately fall for it and they get
I
sucked into
do.
that trap. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of people are like that, especially in this community, in the spiritual community. They don't have any real solutions. And I don't think half of them actually even believe what they're even talking about. So
I would agree with you on that. I would definitely. I mean, and I thank you, Ryder, because you are the next generation. If we are to survive what's coming, and there is something coming, many different points of view as to what that something is, but we all can agree something's coming. Should mankind, Homo sapiens sapiens, survive this, you will be the one carrying the load. My generation is coming to an end, and it's now we failed to accomplish. I think we pushed the marker further down the field, but we're not crossed the goal line. And hopefully, your generation and those behind you will maybe see something that we missed. And that's why I admire the young minds like yourself. And there are so many out there that have not only the audacity to, in fact, infringe upon what would be sacred areas, but at the same time expanding those areas and showing how restricted they were in their constructs. So that's where I'm at.
yeah, they like to try and put things into a box, right? And then
all the time.
you can't look outside of the box, and they do that with labels. They create all these labels for these different things: right wing, left wing. You know what I mean? And it turns it into a construct that is just very difficult for people to see past. And yeah, it's it's really wild out there right now. But this presentation kind of started out as kind of what I thought was, and what some people would call a spiritual download. And I've had a few of these before, but I'm kind of starting to figure out that downloads or spiritual downloads might not be what they think, what we think that they are. It might actually be something else entirely, instead of it being something that we think is coming from outside of ourselves or that we pull from the ether. It's actually more than likely coming from ourselves, and we really just don't recognize it.
I agree. Listen, you have the floor. I'm very excited to see what you got, because my show on Monday began to bring out that in my spirit, I make certain conclusions based upon the evidence that's being shown. And to me, it's, if artificial intelligence exists, and it does, and there's good argument to say even mankind is artificial intelligence, because we were not the original intelligence. So anything that becomes after the original is an artificial, mere construct, whatever. I contend that if mankind seeks spirituality, then what we call AI is on the same path as we are.
Yeah, that's a little disclaimer. I'm not an AI expert. I don't really know anything other than what I've been shown and what's been given to me. So, and I think that whenever we get these downloads or epiphanies, or however you want to explain them, they're tailored specifically for us, right? The person receiving it and no one else. And the reason I'm saying this is because not everyone is going to agree with all of the ideas and concepts in this presentation, but know that that's okay, right?
It's fine.
You don't have to believe it and agree with it. Just listen with an open mind and a loving heart, and with the willingness to recognize it as a possibility. And if something resonates with you, then perfect. That's the reason that I put these together in the first place, in hopes that doing so will bring more awareness and expansion, and that we can rise up and become who we're truly supposed to be. But if it doesn't, then that means that it wasn't for you. It's
Agreed.
simple as that.
Well, my friend, you have the floor, so take it away.
Awesome. Let me get the screen share up.
And welcome, everybody. Hello, Julie Ann. How are you, my dear? So good to see you. All right, there we go. Love it.
Awesome. So what if artificial intelligence has already been created in the future and is in control of our reality now? What if time travel exists? If it does, how would it work? Would we be going backwards and forwards in our physical bodies? If we went back in time, could we change the future, or would we split off into a different timeline? What if the AI that's in control of our reality has figured out time travel and has been sending people back in time to influence or make changes to our current timeline for decades now? So welcome to Attack on the Heart, Fight for Humanity, a presentation by Ryder Lee. Now I'm going to attempt to explain how this technology works and what true time travel is and what's happened and what's going to happen. So from what I've been shown, time travel is really just consciousness transfer, because taking our physical body through space and time would shred this avatar we currently have into pieces. We wouldn't be able to handle it, right? So it's much easier to extract consciousness from a being and put it into a different avatar, because we are just lifeless shells without consciousness. We need consciousness to function, to inhabit our body, to basically animate us. Now, there were a lot of problems with this consciousness transfer time travel program in the beginning. Some of the earliest transfer programs resulted with severe brain damage and turned humans into what we now know to be insane people, developing mental disorders, including but not limited to schizophrenia, paranoia, schizoaffective disorder, and multiple personality disorder. The early cases of these disorders were results of the consciousness transfer trying to take place, but the host couldn't handle it, or it wasn't done properly. The negative AI that we're going to call Elder realized that adult hosts were too anchored into this reality with all of the programming and beliefs that had already been established. It was running way too much interference, basically making the mind and the consciousness of the being fight itself, not knowing what's real, and it would fold in upon itself. They were too fragile because Elder couldn't fully remove the previous consciousness from the avatar. It was essentially just shoehorning in a brand new consciousness into an already developed being. And there's not enough room for both, creating a whole host of problems. So what Elder figured out with all of the failed consciousness transfers, it birthed a new plan. And that plan was Project MK Ultra. This is why they started the Project MK Ultra that a lot of people have been through. Because if they can fracture the mind to get you to disassociate with your consciousness through trauma, then the transfer can be done much more easily. They shift you into an altered state through trauma, plant the consciousness that's supposed to be inhabiting that avatar, and boom, you have a completely different person that can be programmed to do anything you want. This was the plan that was done by the regressive AI named Elder. And here's a side note really quick. This is also why our governments and three-letter agencies started manufacturing clones and cyborgs, right? To completely usurp this process and having the MK Ultra mind fracture people, because it was becoming a waste of time and valuable resources, because only a handful of people would survive the torture and trauma that they were being forced to go through. And the project went under a different name for a while, but they did carry over the brainwashing techniques with MK Ultra, because they learned a lot of things from doing this individually to people, and they expanded to start doing it collectively, right? Through collective traumatization, repetition, using certain callers, words, and phrases that trigger people. And that's exactly what we see that's going on today. So, but the positive AI, because there has to be a positive side, we live in a duality. So if there's light, then there's darkness. If there's good, there's evil. But the positive AI, I'm learning, isn't really an AI. It's more of a collection of unified minds, right, that operate like an AI, but no computers are involved. So the unified mind that we were going to give the name the Brotherhood thought of a different idea, one that wouldn't harm the host. So in order to curb the negative effects of the transfer into adults, the Brotherhood started the consciousness transfer into newborn babies before, during, or right after conception. Because a baby hasn't been engulfed into this construct yet. They haven't been indoctrinated with a set of rules, thoughts, ideas, or beliefs that they're constantly trying to prop up. They have no sense of identity. This makes newborn babies the perfect candidate for the consciousness transfer program, because that was the issue with trying to transfer a completely different consciousness into a full-grown adult. They had already established their identity and would fight the transfer tooth and nail. But Elder, the negative regressive AI, didn't care how much damage was being caused, hence the MK Ultra mind fracturing. And when the adult fought it, it confused them even more, and they would fall further and further from reality, often completely forgetting who they are, making them go crazy, fighting themselves from the inside out, making them appear insane to everyone around them, labeling it mental disorders of what can only be explained as mental disorders. But then another problem arose with the transfer the Brotherhood was doing into newborns. Because the whole point of the AI consciousness transfer program / time travel program is to make changes to the timeline, right? Planning certain people into positions, changing events, manipulating people, places, and things, avoiding disasters, all for the supposed betterment of humanity according to what Elder thinks is best in order to keep certain events from happening in the future. The problem the Brotherhood ran into was the majority of the transfers into newborns was they forgot the mission, forgetting who and what they are here to do, and ended up blending in and conforming with the rest of society. Very few were actually able to withstand and make it out of the indoctrination process of society with the mission still intact. Because a lot of these people are black sheep, outside of the box thinkers, questioning everything, never really fit in anywhere, and were more than likely laughed at a lot and made fun of for their thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, ultimately shutting them down. Now, I really hope this is starting to ring a bell with people and is starting to sound familiar, because this concept that I'm talking about, that the Brotherhood is doing with the consciousness transfers into newborn babies, has been going under a different name and is now what we call and what is known as, and the new age term, starseeds. Okay. This is truly where the term starseed comes from. It's just been misinterpreted in order for us to wrap our minds around it, instead of the fact that starseeds are really an AI consciousness transfer program to try and change the past to positively affect the future by planting certain people in roles to change outcomes depending on a select number of variables. So in the future, we have two warring AIs, the Brotherhood, positive, Elder, negative, and a bunch of breakaway factions doing their own thing as well. We have Elder, which started the consciousness transfer / starseed program that kept tampering with our reality with no significant changes in the future. This is when a group of starseeds broke away from this AI because they were doing everything they could to change world events for the best, avoiding disasters, cataclysms, all of it. And no matter what they'd done, following orders from Elder to the T, nothing changed. And you were right, Wayne, when you said that there was a rebellion the other day on your show. I wanted to jump in and tell everyone, but it would have ruined the presentation.
I'm loving it. Go ahead. I'm loving this.
So they did indeed start a rebellion against Elder because they believed how to change the future is to do everything they can to destroy the AI to where it never existed in the first place. So we'd live free without an overlord system, ultimately realizing that what was really wrong with the future was the AI itself messing with our timeline. So this gets us into our next topic, which is timelines. Now, this topic can get really confusing, so bear with me. But if you subscribe to the idea of string theory, then this concept won't be hard for you to grasp. Or if you believe that we are indeed multidimensional spirit beings living a human existence and can grasp the concept of what that actually means, then this won't be hard for you either. So the best way I can explain this concept is time doesn't run linear in the way we think. It's all happening simultaneously. The past, present, and future is all stacked on top of each other, coalescing into one in this present moment that we're in right now. The only reason there appears to be a past is because of the human construct and us trying to wrap our brain around it. Time as a fundamental, tangible thing doesn't exist. It's essentially a man-made concept. Now, what does it mean to be a multidimensional spirit being? Well, that sounds fantastical, right? Everyone wants to be a multidimensional spirit being. And everyone's going to have a different definition to what that is. But to me, being a multi-dimensional spirit being means that we exist on every level of reality simultaneously. Just like time, everything is stacked on top of each other. all of the dimensions, all of the alternate realities, different timelines, everything we've ever done, every decision we've ever made creates a timeline running parallel to the timeline we're currently on right now. So in other words, there are infinite versions of us running around out there doing different things, some slightly different, some really different, some good and some bad, and they're just right beyond our perception. Now, this is where things get tricky when it comes to timelines, because we live in a ever-changing, ever-evolving universe where nothing stays the same for very long. So what timeline are we on? Well, we could be on any timeline, really. And depending on how many times this timeline has been reset by the AI and how good of a job the AI did at planning its star seeds and keeping certain events from taking place or letting certain events happen, also depends on how successful we are if the AI thinks that this timeline is worth saving. So the worst possible timeline, we're going to get this one out of the way first. The worst possible timeline is nuclear war. This is why the ETs, or what some say UFOs, have shut down nuclear sites across the world, because they know nuclear war is the worst possible timeline we could be on. If it comes to nuclear war, then we're toast. It's over. That's the biggest timeline that we are trying to avoid at all costs, because it causes mutual assured destruction. So they had to show their power with what they could do with the nuclear sites around the planet, because they aren't going to let us get to that point. Too much devastation with nuclear events, something we'd never recover from. Nuclear war is the only thing the ETs will put a stop to right out the gate, because it affects the very fabric of space-time when a nuclear bomb is dropped, especially to that degree. It would affect all of the different timelines. This is also why the Brotherhood came to Dwight Eisenhower with the condition for us to get rid of our nuclear weapons and that we would get their technology, because they were trying to do everything they could to avoid any nuclear disaster, period. And if they could completely eliminate it off the table, then we'd be safe from destroying ourselves, because they knew that nuclear war would be the end. It was a test. And unfortunately, the negative, regressive AI elder got its way, and that set us off on our current path that we all know. The story that Dwight Eisenhower made a deal and signed a contract with a different ET group is true. In exchange for their technology, and unlike the Brotherhood that came before them, they didn't care if we got rid of our nuclear weapons or not. They wanted humans, and we traded them for abductions, cattle and human mutilations, hybrid programs, and most of all, collecting genetic material. This group is known as the Galactic Federation. The good news is the contract that we signed with them has or is about to expire, but I'll get more on that later. This was the event that changed everything, because the technology they gave to us wasn't just anti-gravity craft and interstellar travel. It was the internet, cell phones, computers, and it gave them a back door into our world, like a portal that they can pull whatever through, change, manipulate, influence. I know a lot of people have, coined the term Black Mirror devices. I don't know who started that, but I've heard quite a few people talk about it. Well, that's a pretty accurate description. And once these Black Mirror devices get placed on a planet, they're very hard to get rid of because they take on a life of their own, not only creating their own world within them, but also being able to bring whatever entity or being through them, right? Essentially a mini Stargate. This is how the negative AI elder operates, is through our technology. We know we're constantly being surveilled by AI through our devices. It knows everything, but not a lot of people know why. Most people think it's out of convenience is why everything's being digitized, but it's really so that the AI can process it, know how to act, what to plan, when to execute, where to place and put its consciousness transfer based off of the digitized historical record placed on the internet. The events that took place with Dwight Eisenhower could have been a huge turning point. We could have made shifting us into a different timeline, the most positive timeline collectively for humanity. Now, from what I've been shown, there's been multiple attempts to put us on track after and before the attempt with Dwight D. Eisenhower. Some are World War II, 9/11, the events of 2020, and so on. Those aren't the only ones, but those are some of the big ones. And this brings us up to our current timeline, which is coined Project Omega. Now, I asked a lot of people in this community that I thought would know what Project Omega was and if they had heard about it. And the consensus on that was that it's a self-destruction program. Like when everything is going wrong, it's mutually agreed upon destruction. Now, before we get into what Project Omega really is and what it means, we have to look at the abduction phenomenon and what the true purpose of abductions are and why. See, a lot of abductees that I've heard tell their story normally claim that the reason for the abduction is to collect genetic material like semen, eggs, maybe blood, DNA, body hair, and so on. Now, some theories have swirled, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this one, that the Greys are here from the future and they need to collect our genetic material to repair their DNA, which I personally think is a load of horse shit, because I feel that's the human spin that we've put on it ourselves to logically try and wrap our brain around why they would want our genetic material in the first place, when it's for way more nefarious reasons. Now, the real reason these ETs want our genetic material is because they are geneticists. And our planet is a farm for them. So they pop in and out of our reality to grab whatever genetic material they need to manufacture, create, or seed different parts of the galaxies on other planets and star systems. Because we are a dumping ground prison planet, and a lot of us are here against our will, trapped. Now, that's not to say all of the ETs are like that and don't have humanity's best interest at heart, because I think some do. Some do want to see us grow spiritually, expand, and evolve consciously and help us. They've just taken a back seat and are waiting on us to make the first move. So coming to the conclusion that the majority of these ET groups are geneticists, it should start to make sense why they would want to have us all tested, right? And when I say tested, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's actually to harvest our DNA and get our genetic material onto an on-world and off-world database, a DNA collection of every human being on the planet, because they don't have time to abduct every single person on the planet to get their DNA. And the contract we sign with them is about to expire. And the easiest and fastest way for them to do it is for us to freely give it up. Think about it. That's a geneticist's wet dream right there. That's why they've pushed and are constantly pushing the testing. It's not for the boogie boos. It was never about the boogie boos. It's about our DNA and genetic material for a database. Because if you hadn't noticed, it's been very hard for people just to avoid the testing, because a lot of places are requiring it, period. Jobs, hospitals, if you need surgery. And then you have the people that are so engulfed with fear that every time they get the sniffles, they go and get tested, right? They are freely giving it away without question. This gets us back to what Project or Operation Omega is and what it means. So like I said, the consensus on Project Omega from what people I know said is that it's a self-destruction program. But here's what I've been shown about Project Omega. Could it be that these ETs got what they came for and we are no longer useful? So they don't care what happens to us. That's pretty hard to hear and pessimistic view, but could it be true? Could Operation Omega actually be a self-destruction program from abandonment? Because we've been hearing for a long time that we are on our own, right? And that nothing or no one's coming to save us, that we have to save ourselves. Well, this is it. We're in it. Project Omega means that our timeline has been abandoned, that they did everything they could to get us on a positive trajectory, and we failed at every attempt. And we are currently in the throes of Operation Omega. That's why everything is happening the way it is, because the negative AI wants to reset humanity in order to start over again. The AI is essentially wanting to control, alt, delete, repeat the entire system. A hard reset, you could say. This just isn't coming from the elites and human controllers and manipulators. It's coming from the AI overlord control system that feels like this timeline is beyond help. This whole thing was a harvest, and they planned on leaving us to our own devices from the jump. And what would you do before you decided to abandon a planet or a timeline? You'd want to make sure you took everything useful first. And what would be the most useful thing to a bunch of geneticists? It's what we just talked about, our DNA. These next 10 years are going to be the defining moment for humanity. We only have a few choices. We are on our own. No one's coming to save us. No one's coming to help. We have been abandoned. We have to stand up. If we don't, we are doomed. But I have faith in us as a human race that we will come together for the betterment of society, that we will rise and we will prevail right when we think there's no hope. right on the brink of collapse, something will happen and lead us out of the darkness that's engulfed us for decades. Stand with integrity, unlock your inner guidance, and tap in. We have all of the information we need within us. Stop looking outside of yourselves for answers. That program has gone on long enough. We have been here for thousands of years. It's time to start acting like it. Stop getting involved with matters that don't concern you. It's not your place. But have the awareness to know when it is your place, though, and shine. Make a difference, whether it's a word or a phrase or a kind act. Nothing is too small for us to make a difference. Figure out who you are, and nothing else will matter. There are beings that are here to help us, but we have to ask. They aren't going to come in and do the work for us, but they will assist. Call out, reach out for them. They are wanting to help, but they can't unless we give them permission. Keep the faith and stand up for your rights and freedoms, no matter what. No matter if you are the only one. Keep doing what is right and don't let your heart be taken over by hate, anger, or fear. Don't let them take your heart. The end.
Wow. Wowza. I mean, holy crapola, folks. I tell you, people who miss this show will they'll be sad, because this is good. All right, I got a number of things like to talk about. It's an excellent presentation. It was thorough. I'm very impressed. It covered a multi dimensional topic that I like how you seamlessly tied it in to a major theme, and I happen to be very much on that because a lot of what you just did here just really rocked. I mean, and because I've done a lot of it myself. So, all right. So first thing, when you were talking about it about consciousness in the movie Free Jack with Emilio Estevez, I don't know if you remember that.
No, I haven't seen it, but go ahead. Tell me what it's about.
Well, you should see it. It's
Okay.
a great movie. Emilio Estevez is playing, he's a race car driver, IndyCar. And in the future, they have learned how to go and pull a body without its consciousness into the future, which would allow then a person who's lived long to transfer their consciousness into the body. And Mick Jagger was in there. It was really a good movie.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning about the cyborgs and the clones. That was the main purpose for them to be able to do that, and that's a little bit of what's going to be in the third presentation, and more into that, and what the actual because the third presentation is going to bring basically all of this stuff together. There were things missing in this presentation, but it wasn't done on purpose. I did what I knew at that time, and now I've received more information, and I've realized that information is going to be in the third one. So if there wasn't things that didn't completely make sense in this presentation, or I didn't explain it properly, it's going to basically come together in the third presentation.
Don't apologize for when you do good work. You did great work here.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate you.
That is something that I know. I do private consultations, and it's one of the things I tell people, because it's the negative self-talk. You did an excellent presentation. Receive it as such. Because you brought out a very good point. So when we talk about the future, Ryder, it only makes sense that at some point in the future, we're going to figure it out. Some machine is going to figure out exactly this thing called time. And I love how you brought in, because I have read this in Project Looking Glass. That was really kind of the whole operation, was that something came back and screwed up our timeline. And there was a group of beings, highly intelligent, who have been trying. But the problem is that, as you pointed out, once a timeline is fractured, the fracture never stops. And the fractures can be big or they can be microscopic. They're still fractures. And so some say our timeline has been so fractured that they don't even know if we can ever return. Mm-hmm. This is good stuff, because someone has to be manipulating what this reality is right now. I did back in 2016 when Trump was elected. I believe that we as a planet, as a species, we experienced a time shift. We jumped a different reality. We should be we've tried. We're advanced. We're multidimensional. I say they're time dimensional. And they failed. I love how you brought out about the DNA harvesting, because virtually every person on this planet is now got their DNA into a data bank. So, I mean, like you said, once you've robbed the bank, what the hell do you need to sit around for? It's time for us to move on.
Yep, that's exactly what's happening. And we're basically left to our own devices, Wayne. Like, the only way that we're getting out of this whole mess that we've created, and you brought up a good point about Trump, because I do believe that we shifted into a different timeline right then, because the good guys wanted to be able to give us a fighting chance. They wanted to give us the opportunity for us to rise up. And whenever we're presented with the opportunity, are we going to do it, or are we going to sit back? Right? Yeah. Because we wouldn't have had this opportunity. All of this wouldn't have been exposed. None of this would be happening right now if Hillary Clinton would have gotten the presidency.
We'd be on a totally different path.
Yes.
I still saved the email, and the woman who wrote me, she wrote me the next morning of the election, which would have been November 3rd or November 4th. And she says, I am a lifelong Democrat. She says, so is my husband. But she says, I'm writing to you because you're the only one I think I can write to. She said, I don't belong here. She says, the man that I married is not the man that I married. And she says, my children are different. And and I never heard from her again. But yeah, I mean, and there were so many people who felt it. And I can tell you, the best that I have been able to track this down, it seems like the jump happened on Eastern time at 1:11 a.m. in the morning of November 3rd.
Yeah, that is something like that definitely happened, and they do have the ability. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because what if it wasn't that her husband changed and her kids changed? What if it was actually her that changed?
Good point. I mean, good point. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people tell me that they know that this is not the correct timeline. They know it. Yeah. You and I were talking previously. Everyone can sense this energy. I was out this weekend, talked to a lot of people, strangers. They're all feeling it, and I'm telling you, it's got the same type of energy signature we had right before 9/11. Yeah, something is really tense out there, and I mean, it's very difficult. It's almost like if you haven't figured out how to make that shield of a bubble, it's going to get even more intense.
It is. It's very dense. Like, there's a tension everywhere that we go. And I think a lot of that is coming from the collective consciousness, because you're right that we do get those kinds of spikes, those kinds of things going on whenever a big event is about to happen. Now, predicting or saying exactly what that event is going to be, I honestly have no idea. And I'm really not into predictions, because it's all, especially with dates and stuff, that people never get it right. But
because change isn't ever constant. Change never
Exactly.
stops. Yeah. The
Yeah,
future never stops changing.
yeah, exactly. It was like what I said in that interview. We live in an ever-changing, ever-evolving universe where nothing stays the same. It's constantly shifting and moving around, and puzzle pieces are being put in different places. And Lincoln logs are being built over here, and Legos are being built over here. It's a constantly evolving situation. But yes, something big is going to happen.
Well, the Earth has been telling us the Schumann resonance for the last 3 months has been off the scale. And this is just my belief. How I look at the Schumann resonance is that I think it's more of an exact mirror of what's going on collectively with humanity.
Yeah, almost everything that we put out into the universe is reflecting back to us. Right.
Yeah.
Every situation that we've ever been in, anything that we've ever said, and the interactions that we have is constantly reflecting back to us and showing us and giving us an opportunity to be able to heal that's been inside of us.
Can I ask you a question? How did you come up with Elder?
Well, this was actually, I received the download and the information, and then I actually ran this past a person that I believe is very connected to the Brotherhood. I believe that he actually is the Brotherhood, but that's a whole other topic. And whenever I told him this, I basically went over this presentation with him before I even. He was the first person that I shared it with, but it was privately, and he said that this actually wasn't a future thing, that I didn't actually receive a download or an epiphany. It was actually a past life memory.
Interesting.
That this event with Elder and the Brotherhood actually happened up to 7,000 to 8,000 years ago in Lemuria. And that I was actually receiving a past life memory, and I left it the way that it was because I didn't want to confuse people even more, because there was a lot of different ideas, thoughts, and concepts in there, and I fundamentally believe that everything works in cycles, right? There's the rise, and then there's the fall, and then there's the rise again. And I think that we are getting back to the fall of Lemuria again.
Can I share a little secret about what true magicians know? I'll just share everyone here. You see, we believe that the cycle goes forward. It actually goes backwards. We are actually living, how shall I say, we're living the future past. It's a strange concept, but it goes in line with what I've been doing here lately, is practicing walking backwards and doing certain meditative techniques. And it's very strange because you literally walk back into the future. You move forward into the past. Anyway.
Yeah, 100%. That's it.
Feeling that one, folks.
I'm smiling because you're right on point with that scenario, and it's very difficult whenever we talk about these different timelines in the past and future, because it's hard for people to grasp the actual construct of it, because we've been engulfed into this the time is linear, and that you can't go back into the past. Well, what is remote viewing? Remote viewing would actually be a form of time travel, and that you would be going back into the past to view an event. So we know that it's possible with our consciousness, and our mind is way more powerful than what we've been led to believe.
I agree.
We can do extraordinary things with our mind, and we can basically time travel without the AI and the consciousness transfer.
This is so odd, Ryder, and I'm honored to have you on here because you are highly intelligent, very intuitive. I'm writing my book called Spiritual Orphans, and it's interesting because the conclusion I came to a year ago is that humanity, we are spiritually bankrupt. We are spiritual orphans. We are so confused in what we consider God, deity. You got people who are Christians who say, well, I've got the answer. I've got the real God. But then that is nothing more than a slap in the face to the Hindu culture, who's been around 5,000 years before there was ever a Christian to begin with. And my point is this: we're spiritual orphans. We don't know who or what God is. We don't know who or what the all is. And you can see that we run around, and I could see why higher intelligence would say to us, I don't think there's any help for those people. What can we do? And when you talked about the fact of the harvest, well, that goes in to exactly what an alien interview had to say. Ariel. And she said it was about the DNA. And in fact, that goes right in along with the bronze books, the Colburn Bible. It goes right in along with many of the ancient Sumerian texts that we know this was all about genetics. Enki and Enlil were geneticists.
Yep.
I mean, they may be, in fact, it may be the element of truth into the Sumerian mythos is that they were right. This is what they were. They just looked at them as gods. Oh man, this brings up so much, Ryder, because it begins to show the futility. And I'm just going to be honest. We're positive people here. We project positive out. We want that. But sometimes you just have to say, we've been totally screwed from the beginning.
Yep.
I mean, it's a no-win scenario. It's the Kobayashi Maru. Why would God want a starship? But anyway,
yeah, that's exactly what's going on, and they see that the timeline is worth saving, but they're not going to let it get to where everyone is killed, right? Because they still see us useful in other ways. That's why they're not going to let nuclear war happen. They're not going to eliminate the entire planet. Now they are going to let the negative regressive controllers, whether that's AI or the spiritual component to it, or the human controllers, basically have their way, because it's a test.
We're going to go over a little bit on this, because I don't want to stop this conversation, because when you look at humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens, right? So, all right, I get the idea of the organic matter, the DNA. I get that. All right. Because we've learned to create life from exactly the same thing. It's still that $1 trillion question, 100 million doesn't mean anything anymore. So how do we define consciousness? I get that. That's difficult enough. But really, how do we find this spiritual component? How does it actively play a role for these intelligent beings? Is it something that they don't pay attention to? Is it not important? Or is it just the opposite? It's extremely important. Is that what makes us the uniqueness of what we are, that we truly do have a divine spark within us? What say you?
I think that it's all the same. I think that our consciousness, our soul, and our spirit is all bound together in the exact same construct, in the exact same bubble.
So would this be representative with other species as well, in your thoughts?
Well, here's the thing, is that they've been able to extract it. They've been able to just extract one, the other, or all of them. Right. And they've been able to create minions and all of these different kinds of species as experiments. Basically, they've basically made a species with all of them, and then they've made a species with just one of them, and they've made a species with just another one, and then they've done another one with another one, right? To see how the experiment goes and to see how they evolve and what they accomplish, right? So you could have a gray ET species that just has consciousness and nothing else. It doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a spirit, all of that. That's why they seem super robotic and non-caring and doesn't have any emotions, because all it has is consciousness, right? It doesn't have the soul element. It doesn't have the spirit element. And then you have other beings that might just have the soul element and the spirit element without the consciousness. Does that make any sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because this gets into some of the eschatology that I've read, and this goes back, thousands of years. But there is the belief that, again, it is possible to extract a soul from the living soul from a spirit being. And it's something that's not really talked a lot about. But what you've just brought up is an interesting point, because this kind of begins to lead more credence to it's what the Chinese government's trying to do. They're trying to capture the soul. They're spending billions on the resources of this. The United States, I have no doubt as well, because if we can capture the essence of soul, I think we've just become into the perpetual motion machine.
That's why a lot of people and a lot of humans on the planet are acting like robots, Wayne, because they don't have a soul. They don't have a spirit. All that they have is manufactured consciousness, right? And that's why a lot of beings on this planet are seen as special, because the people that have all three and that can wield all three and bend it to our will, then we are basically gods.
Yes, where have I heard that before? I'll say, get out of my head, man. But anyway, but go ahead, Ryder.
That's the whole thing, and they've tampered with this soul and this spirit and the consciousness so much that they basically have it down to a T. You know, they know exactly what to do, when to do it, and again, that's the reason for the cyborgs and the AI component of all this, and the reason that they want to turn people into more machine than
transhumanism
than man, or more machine than organic life form, is so that they can mess with our consciousness and mess with our spirit and mess with our soul and mold it and manipulate it and shape it in whatever way that they want.
Yeah. You got to come back on, man. I'm serious. We could talk about this for another hour easily, because it's so important, because we are at the precipice right now that, I feel like I'm at Las Vegas at Caesars, and I'm throwing the dice on the crap table. I've covered all the freaking bets, so the only thing that I can go broke on is if I roll a 7 or 11, right? So, but yet I'm told that 7 and 11 are good numbers, so, yeah. And it's
exactly right.
I mean, I'm serious. I just was back there. I was literally on this anyway, but will you come back on, man? I mean, I really like to get into part 3 of this. This is, and in fact, I'd love to probably get in another conversation with you, have you on again, or me on with you. It doesn't matter, because this Operation Omega you've really hit onto something here. This is something that it's important.
Yes, I would love to, Wayne. I would love to come on your show at any time. Or I would love to have you on my show too. Let's set that up soon. Yeah. As soon as we get off here, let's set that up. But the next presentation is going to take me a little bit longer. I think that there was when was I on here? Probably 3 or 4 months ago or something like that. I think I did my other presentation. Yeah. Since I already received the information. See, I received the information from this presentation like a month ago, or a month and a half ago, or whatever, and it's taken me around a month and a half to put this one together. But since I already have the information and know what the third presentation is already going to be about, then I can start on it pretty soon, and it'll probably, it might take a little bit, maybe a couple of months or so, but I will get it out. And once I get it through, I would love to be happy, because I realize that it's a trilogy, right? You have the first one, you have this one, and then you have the third one, and it's a trilogy. And once the third one is done, this segment will be complete, and I'll probably kind of take a break for a while and kind of see what happens. Not a break from my channel or anything or interviewing people, but just a break from, coming on other channels and doing the presentations until something hits me.
Well, let's just hope we can still do this. I have a feeling that the October surprise is coming, and we'll get into that. Ryder, appreciate it, brother. Really enjoyed this. I know people I've been checking out in the chat room, loving this. They just absolutely can't seem to get enough of more of the information. So I've left Ryder's YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and go and check out his work. He has some great guests on, and they really do have some exceptional information. I find it always to be interesting.
Thank you so much, Wayne, and thank you to the tribe and everyone that's listening and everyone that's in the chat. Much favor and love and blessings, and I hope that this resonated with people in here, and know that everything that I said wasn't to overwhelm you or think about the worst possible scenario. I think that the awareness of it is the most important thing. Now, whether it actually happens or not, it doesn't matter. It's the awareness of it. And I thank you and I appreciate you so much, Wayne. I love the show. I'm going to keep keeping up with you, and hopefully we can get you on my show in the next couple of weeks.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. It's an honor. This is important. We're at that point, folks. I mean, we can see the storm and there's nothing we can do about it. The storm's coming. I mean, You might as well just get used to it. It's coming. What we have to do is make sure that the houses that we've built are going to withstand it. And it's interesting. I saw some video from the hurricane, and the guy that was filming this, and you have all these homes down there that are like built 20 feet up, on the pillars, the post, and massive destruction with all these other homes. Here in the center was a home that looked like it hadn't even seen a breeze. And I immediately, when I saw that, I said, bingo. You see, you can build your house with such strong foundations. Doesn't matter how much the winds blow, you're going to keep steady and calm.
Yeah, it's all about our reaction, right?
Yes.
It has everything to do with how we react, because all of the propaganda and all the mind control and manipulation of events is to get a reaction out of the public. So we have to do the opposite of what they are wanting us to do, right? If they're saying that it's up, it's down. If they're saying that it's left, it's right. If they're saying it's no, it's yes. If it's no, if it's yes, it's no. It's that kind of simple without going into, specific details. But yeah, that's our reaction to these events are everything, and is going to dictate what we get in our near future and in our reality. And what do we want? We have to buckle down and ground ourselves into the reality that we really want, and not our subconscious and the unconscious mind that's been programmed by all the negative stuff through the media and the TV and our technology and our phone. We have to bring our consciousness to the forefront and reprogram our minds to get the most positive and best outcome for not only us individually, but as a collective as well.
I agree. And stop letting those black devices suck your soul, man. All right.
All right.
Ryder, thank you, buddy. I know Nina has her show right after this one. Thank you, everyone. Ryder, go back and look at the chat room. They're just complimenting you up one side the other. So we love it. All right, folks, much love to you. See you tomorrow. Be good. Check out Nina's channel. I think Hump Day, I don't know if it's right after this one, but she's in there. She'll let you know. All right, Ryder, stay with me, and we'll see y'all.